Hey guys, just wanted to do my review of The Flash, Season 4, Episode 4, Elongated Journey into Night. So, this episode focuses on the origins of Elongated Man, or even though they don't go by the code name, is known as Ralph I think it was like Dibny. It more resembles apparently Plastic Man's backstory as opposed to Elongated Man's because he starts as more of as more kind of like a shady character. Apparently, he has a bad history with Barry because of the fact that he was a corrupt cop who was working on a case back when Barry was a junior CSI. He and during Barry's tenure, there was a woman who was murdered by her husband, who was murdered allegedly by her husband. Um, uh, they found evidence of the husband's fingerprints on the knife, but Barry looked into it again just because of how he had recollections of the Reverse Flash framing his dad for his mom's murder, and he also found out that there were no fingerprints on the knife, and because of what Ralph did, Barry reported him and got Ralph kicked off the force to the point where he was working as a private investigator and looking into like cheating cheating spouses and whatnot, and even to the point where you find out that he's actually blackmailing the mayor into exposing his infidelities in exchange for money, just because he's trying to get by, and he's and he's also jealous of Barry because of the fact that it's like he's married. He has his attractive fiance. He has money because he's inherited Star Labs from Thawne, and also the fact, and he just feels like he has this great life, and he still has work. He's still working at CCPD, and while Ralph has to struggle to get by, and he also found out he was one of the 12 people on the bus that was exposed to the dark matter wave from the portal that escaped from Barry escaped from the Speed Force, and you also have the so you have this those, but you still have the interesting thing is like he's not a villain of the week per se. He's more of it's more has to do with the mayor because he's sending he's hiring people to come after both both Ralph and anybody who's onto any is like corrupt dealings, because he even sends the cops after Barry and Joe at the former's apartment, in which he does this thing where he Barry uses super speed to have the two quote unquote fake cops hit themselves in the face with their guns, which is a la Quicksilver in Days of Future Past. And Caitlin is calling Barry out and saying, that he thinks Barry's being a jerk towards Ralph and saying that he deserves a second chance, and especially considering Barry's willing to give Caitlin a second chance after the whole Killer Frost fiasco, and it's enough to make Barry confide in Joe as to whether or not he's so different from Ralph, considering they used to do stuff to break the law in the name of good, stuff like locking metahumans in the pipeline without trial back in the first season, and a little in parts of season 2. And I mean, the thing is that we never really find out the whole story behind the bad blood, because Ralph insists that the husband was the guilty party, and so he did frame him just for the sake of just getting it as an attempt to get him convicted. So it's just like, okay, so you never really, so like they deliberately leave this ambiguous as to whether or not like who was in the right in that whole situation. And there's also like there's also like this, also there's a side plot where the episode begins where basically Cisco and Gypsy are about to have sex with um I think it was, Cisco trying to ask what her real name was, since we never know what her real name was. And then of course Breacher shows up and takes an instant disliking to Cisco because he's basically the, stereotypical overprotective dad. But the problem is that he decides to, but even though Gypsy is trying to get Breacher to like Cisco, he still hates his Breacher still hates his guts and basically decides to hunt him and for the next 24 hours and says neither one of them can use their powers. And so much to Gypsy's chagrin, and but it seems like apparently this is not out of the ordinary. Breacher has done this before and actually has killed her past boyfriends. So the fact is, like, they have like Cisco like running around hiding in different parts of like Star Labs with Harry, even encouraging him to use his brains instead of rely on his brains, since he can't use his powers to help to basically try to outsmart Breacher, even to the point where he puts Breacher in a force field that was like, hey, it was good enough to trap the reverse, similar to the one he trapped the Reverse Flash in, but Breacher's able to get out of it, and it's pretty like divorced from like the main plot, but it gets kind of weird. But it gets this kind of like weird point where it's just like you see surveillance footage of Ralph Dibny and Breacher just like he just gets pissed off and is just like plastoids. These are the people that destroyed my planet. And you would think that they were alluding to like the Earth 19 invasion, which led to interdimensional travel being outlawed on their Earth, and then you just figure that it's just kind of like, oh, it's plastoids or people with powers similar to Ralph, which was kind of a real letdown, because I thought that, hey, maybe it was because we're getting the Crisis on Earth X, Earth 10, that maybe it was the Nazis that were responsible for invading that Earth, but apparently not. So it was just kind of like it felt very like forced way of trying to like have the two plots, integrate the two plots. But it leads to a confrontation where Breacher attacks the Flash and Ralph. Vibe comes to the defense, and then we have like the mayor trying to kidnap Joe in the midst of when Ralph decided not to take the extortion money from the mayor when Barry calls him out saying, "Oh, you're a crooked cop. You always have, always will be." But then for some, they have this also kind of forced plot where it's just like, "Oh, I'm not going to be fast enough to catch the helicopter that's where the mayor and Joe is being held at gunpoint," which is BS. But I think it's just more of a thing to have Ralph use his powers to stretch his arms and grab onto the helicopter so Barry can run up and ambush the mayor. And that's when he announces, because everybody keeps saying Joe is glowing the whole episode, he tells everybody Cecile's pregnant, which leads to this whole, music montage where, he brings in cigars for Barry, Caitlin, and Iris, and they're all dancing in the Cortex and hugging, and it just felt like very random, because I just never realized that was just some kind of like tradition to say, hey, I'm going to be a dad. Again, it's just kind of out of left field, and basically because of Cisco's bravery and trying to protect the Flash and Ralph, that Breacher still hates his guts, but Cisco at least earns his respect. And then we also found out Gypsy's name is Cynthia, and then And then when Cisco asks what Breacher's name is, he just says Josh, and he starts laughing his ass off. And with Gypsy saying, "Go on, keep calling me that. I dare you." Just because she knows that, I guess he doesn't want to risk getting an ass kicking. He just decides to keep calling her Gypsy when they both take off on an assignment. And Barry agrees to, give Ralph a chance to redeem himself and train him to be a hero, even if regardless of whatever animosity they have. And then when Barry asks who told Ralph to investigate the mayor, he name drops DeVoe, and he instantly has a flashback to Abracadabra and Savitar both telling him about him back in season 3. And Ralph says, "What does the name mean anything to you?" He says yes, and he does this whole like stretchy nose. I think wrinkle his, I guess like shake his nose for lack of better terms. Like his usual catchphrase, "I smell a mystery," which I'm glad that at least they're not dragging out the fact that like we wanted to wait till like the mid-season finale for the team to find out about DeVoe's finally is active in Central City, and he's presumably the man responsible for what's been happening in season 4. So yeah, it was a great episode. I thought the humor wasn't as over the top as the last few, which I thought was nice, and I just felt like the way they integrated the two storylines of Cisco and Barry and the rest of the company was kind of weird. But we also did get something about a shoehorn outside of Caitlin's apartment, and something etched into her door saying, "We miss you, come back soon," which I guess is supposed to be from Amulet, who's going to be played by Katie Sackhoff next week, and so we finally get to find out, as though hopefully it'll lead to Caitlin's past coming back to haunt her, and from what she's been doing in between seasons, and Killer Frost is going to be coming back next week, which is pretty excited about. So what do you guys think of the episode? What are you guys looking forward to next week? With the Ralph being did you like Elongated Man's debut? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.